Good morning from Panhandle Outdoors with Winston Chester. Panhandle Outdoors, your source for fishing, hunting, and information for folks who enjoy the great outdoors. Now sit back, relax. It's Panhandle Outdoors.
Good morning, folks. Welcome to Panhandle Outdoors. I'm Winston Chester. I'm glad you're here this morning. Got a big show lined up. Got a special guest here. But first, let's do our weather brought to us by Haney Technical Center at the corner of Baldwin and Highway 77. Speaking of 70s, it's going to be a high of 79, and the low is only going to be in 70. That's the highest low we've had this year. So it's really, and we got a 50% chance of rain. I've been tickled watching, we talk about watching a week ahead. It started off at 10%, then 60%, but now, today they got a 50% chance of rain, so just be aware of that, and always drive safely if it does have a heavy downpour. We have a lot of moisture, a lot of fog and all in the morning, so we have a lot of moisture in the atmosphere. So be aware of that. Water temperature is at 74 degrees. It is really, the last 2 weeks, really gone up. Okay, river readings at Apalachicola, Bluntstown. Now we're getting a big drop on this. It's going to bounce up, then it's going to start dropping. It's going to read, first time it's been in single figures, 9.6 now is the reading this morning, and it's falling on out for the weekend. The Choctawhatchee on Caryville, it's pretty level really, but it's also reading a 9.2. We have twin readings on both rivers, both of them are a little bit over 9 foot, and a slow drop on the Choctawhatchee and a pretty steady drop on the Apalachicola. So this weekend really looks good as far as the freshwater fishing. Tide chart brought to us by Kent Forest Lawn Funeral Home and Cemetery. Their motto is when carrying counts. Looking at the high tide was 116, and then the low tide is going to be right to midnight at 12:21. We talked about this yesterday. We've got strong tides all week, so we got it coming. The tide's coming in all morning, and then it's going to start dropping out right after lunch. So whichever tide you'd like to fish, it's going to be, both of them going to be there during the course of the day. Good strong movement there. Marine forecast coming west. It's coming south-southeast at 10 to 20, so it's going to be blowing today. All right. Now, I want to mention something before I take this break. I normally don't cover a lot of news other than just weather on this segment. I do want to mention this. I've heard this last night. I got another call from two reliable sources. I just want to inform you as the viewers. And let me preface this by saying this is unofficial, and it wasn't, back in the day we would call it a talk around the dock. And usually that would it turned out, a lot of times it turned out to be pretty true, but the folks around the water and all would hear it first. I have heard that they cannot find any scallops in St. Joe Bay, and I've heard they may not even be a season. Now, don't panic and everything, because when I first heard it from the first source on Sunday night, I was a little skeptical, but then when I heard it again last night from this other person, and of course it would go back to the red tide. The Florida Wildlife Research Institute, if you've watched the show for many years, I used to go with them for 4 or 5 years and do a show and then come back and give you the count. It turned out really good. I've tried to contact them. I will try to contact them the rest of this week, touch base with them. They usually don't do the count till June. But some folks said they've been up here already in like a little count, and they can't find any scallops. So we're going to just wait and see, but I do want you to be aware of that. Again, I don't, everything I talk about on the show is factual. If it's not factual, I tell you, it's just the word of mouth right now. So that's what it is, and we're going to work hard to find information on it, but just be aware of that. All right, let's take our break, and we'll be right back. All right, welcome back, and welcome back to Officer Travis Bassford with FWC. Glad to have you. How you doing?
I'm hanging in there.
Are you healing up?
Pretty much. I got a few more weeks in this and can't wait to get back out there. I missed out not only on working, but on spring fishing too.
I know, yeah.
It's been a while.
Well, listen, we got a lot to talk about, and one of the biggest things is trying to keep all these rules and laws separated and put together and all, and I'm glad you're here, because we got questions. And first of all, we know the redfish is coming up May 1st. So talk about that real quick.
Yes, sir. Redfish, I talked about it, or we talked about it, that they did have a pretty good stock assessment, and those numbers, I kind of read that over, I guess, a couple of shows ago, but the numbers are good. They have went down since 2013, but they're still in good. They're above the red, but they are going to lower the bag limit from 2 fish per person to 1 fish. That starts May 1st. That's just in about a week. The reason they're doing that, they've had a lot of input. I talked about that survey. They had a lot of people respond to the red drum survey across the state and in this region, and they've had a lot of input from stakeholders, and the message was that they wanted the bag limit to go back down from 2 to 1. So that's going to take effect May 1st. And they decided that April 13th in the meeting down in Jupiter in Palm Beach County, actually where I used to work down there.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's a big change. It's been 2 fish now, I think, for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
But before that, it was 1 fish as long as I can remember.
Yeah.
So still the 18, 27-inch slot limit, and going to 1 fish. Now they're going to do another press release on that, but that starts just in about a week. So
okay.
Important to remember if you target redfish.
All right.
All right. So let's talk to the let's talk about the interesting stuff. Red snapper.
All right. Get your pencil out. Write all this down now.
Right. So you get your calculator out. Get your calendar. I'm going to go over the state season. It's been set for a while. It's going to be a little different than last year. Last year we had 70 days. This year we're going to have 78 days. And I'll explain where we gain those 8 days. And then we're going to go over the federal season, their best estimation, and they've got it narrowed down, what it will be in between. So first off, on the state season, it's going to open May 7th. Okay, and it's going to be open Saturdays and Sundays in May, starting on May 7th through May 28th. Once we get to May 28th, it will be continuously open from May 28th through July 10th. And then it will close just like it did last year, and it will reopen in the fall, September and October, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays, including one Monday, which is Labor Day. They like to include these holidays because that's when a lot of people are out in the water and they want to be able to harvest red snapper. So that's where we gain our 8 days in September and October. Last year we just had Saturday, Sundays. This year we're going to have Friday, Saturdays, and Sundays in September and October. So 4 more days in September with the Fridays and 4 more in October with the Fridays. So that's where we gain those 8 days. And I think a lot of people are happy to hear we get a 78-day season in state waters.
Yeah, that's good.
So moving from the state season to the federal season now, we're still kind of in standby mode on that, but they have said for Florida, offshore Florida and federal waters, state waters again from the shore to 9 miles out, federal waters from 9 out to 200 miles. They say it's going to open June 1st.
Yep.
So you can plan on June 1st, and it will be open at least 6 days, possibly up to 9 days for private recreational anglers. Okay, so I know a lot of people are going to be disappointed with that, but
that's just not a lot of days. That's
it's
incredible.
not, especially if you got a storm come through in 3 or 4 days, it's blowing, then you get your season cut in half again.
Yeah.
So that's where we're at now. I've talked a lot about sector separation, and that's what they've done. The separation is in the recreational sector. So you have private recreational anglers. That's if I was to go offshore on my day off and go snapper fishing, or you were to go. That's the one that's going to be opening June 1st. It'll be open 6 to 9 days. Now, there's the charter boat fleet that are federally permitted charter boats. They're in a different sector now of the recreational part of it, and their season is actually going to be substantially longer. If it's a charter boat and you have that federal charter headboat permit, then they're going to get, it's going to open June 1st, just like the recreational, but they're going to get 38 to 56 days.
38 to 56.
So from a month and a half to almost up to 2 months is what they're going to get starting June 1st. Whereas you compare that to the private recreational angler, 6 to 9 days. And a lot of people shake their head. They don't understand why this is happening and why charter boats get so many more days now that they've got the sector separation than the private recreational anglers. And all I can tell you is I've done security at some of these meetings with the Gulf Management Fisheries Council, and it gets heated in there. But I'll tell you this, 90% of the people in that meeting are charter captains. And this is their livelihood. It's very important to them. Not that it's not important to the recreational angler, because it is. But I would encourage you, you can go online to myfwc.com. You can also go on the National Marine Fisheries website. When these meetings come to town, they have them in Destin, they have them in Panama City every year almost. I would recommend going.
That's true. That is so true. And 90% of folks there are looking out for themselves, and when rightfully so. If I was a boat captain, I'd probably do the same thing.
Sure.
That's 90% or 10%. So people like us, we don't go there and give our voice, and this is what those guys listen, and this is what people want, and that's what's going on.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, and they're very well organized, and they're very well spoken, and they have a good case for their side. And I know there's a good case for the recreational side, the private recreational side too. So
you got a good point there.
Yep.
Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. See here with Travis Bassford, officer with FWC, Panama City boy, Bay County, go way back in the Panhandle with your roots and all.
Yes, sir.
3-4 generations, don't you, out of Jackson County. So good to always have Travis on. Real quick before we get back to him, I'm going to talk about this on tomorrow's show, but having a kids fishing clinic at the Deer Point Dam Saturday morning, a lot of good information. I'll give away 250 rod and reels, have free hamburgers for the kids, free hot dogs, and so it's going to start, and they're going to have captains there giving a clinic, and they'll give free live bait at the Deer Point Dam Bait and Tackle. I'll talk more about it tomorrow. Okay, let's get back with you.
All right. One more thing on these offshore reef fish regulations. I talked about this before with gag grouper. They opened it. A month early this year. Mm-hmm. It's going to be opening June 1st instead of July 1st, and they extended it all the way to the end of December instead of closing it that first week of December. So 2 more months to harvest gag grouper, and they went up on the size limit. It's going to start June 1st when it reopens from 22 to 24 inches, and that goes for gag and black. I have yet to see a black grouper up here. I know a lot of people call gags black grouper, but it's the same. Now gag and black's the same because they are very similar fish, and we can talk about ID in one of those one time too. Mm-hmm. But I've heard some of the commercial boats that go way off, they've caught black grouper, but for the most part we do gags. So June 1st till December 31st on gags this year. We get 2 more months. And the cool thing is, like we were talking about in the break, it overlaps with that red snapper.
Yes.
So you can go fish a bottom spot, and for the entire month of June and 10 days into July, you can keep gag grouper and red snapper on the same spot.
Now, if you're serious about fishing, you know what I'm talking about. June's going to be a fishing month.
It sure is, and there's nothing more frustrating than pulling up about a 30-inch gag when it's snapper season, or a big snapper when it's gag season. Yeah. So that's cool how those overlap, and that's a good change I think that they put in place this year. Okay, so now we're going.
This one first?
Yeah, we're going to do a little new topic this week, and this is fish ID, and this is something that I get questions on all the time. How do you tell the difference between a greater amberjack and a banded rudderfish? 2 different fish. They look similar, especially when the banded rudderfish is an adult. And if you're looking here, this is a picture of a greater amberjack. And the fins we're going to be talking about to ID this fish in comparison to a banded rudderfish is going to be the dorsal. You have the dorsal, which is the top fin. The second dorsal is going to be behind that. If you look at that second dorsal, and then right below it on the bottom of the fish is the anal fin. If you were to draw a line vertically on the fish from the base of the anal fin to the top of the dorsal, it's going to be, it's going to start at the base of the anal fin. It's going to be, you're going to get a little ruler we can point
I don't know if we can see, just point it out. I don't know if Jeff, is that going to work okay? We'll try it. Okay. Okay.
It's not as complicated as you think it is, but so this is the anal fin. This is the second dorsal. If you drew a line straight from the base of the anal fin, which is right here, and drew it straight up, okay, on the fish, it's going to meet the top of that dorsal almost every time for an amberjack.
All right.
Okay. Now let's look at a banded rudderfish, and we'll compare the difference. If you look at these 2 fins again, we have the anal fin here, the second dorsal here. The base of the anal fin, if you drew a line straight up vertical on the fish, it's going to be half of that second dorsal total length. So the total length will be from the start of the second dorsal here to the end. The difference is when you start from the base of the anal and draw that line straight up, it's going to pretty much split that in half, whereas an amberjack would be way up here.
Okay, we'll go back to amberjack and see what you're talking about.
Exactly. You come straight up.
That's really good.
It's going to be right there every time. Now, I've talked to our marine fisheries biologist here in Panama City and one down at FWRI, and they said that is the most consistent, easiest way to identify an amberjack compared to a banded rudder. Now, this is another way here that a lot of people have heard of. You can count gill rakers. This is, if you pull the gills up on a fish, they have rakers there above that red part of their gills. You can count them. And the count on a greater amberjack, this is the count here, is different than that of a banded rudder. Sometimes they overlap. This is not practical to do on a live fish because you and I both know you bring an amberjack on board, he's going to be flouncing. So that's another way you can tell. And then the third way would be looking at this jawbone. And you can see on the picture here, this one's labeled very good. This is a banded rudderfish. It stays flat, that upper jawbone underneath the eye where that arrow is pointing. On a greater amberjack, it curves up toward the eye. So those are 3 ways you can tell the difference. The easiest way and the most consistent way, according to the biologist, is going to be the relation of the second dorsal fin and the anal fin. But there's 2 other ways you can look at them. So that is probably one of the most commonly misidentified fish that I see checking people here in Panama City, and that's a good way to tell. And they have different, amberjack's 34 at the fork, and banded rudderfish have that slot 14 to 22. So there's a big difference in there. But anyways, that should help a lot of people if you're confused about it, and you can go online and do more research about it. But that's the best way to tell would be, again, that relation of the second dorsal to the anal fin.
And I'll go out sometimes on the Florida Queen or some of these big head boats just to go out and fish with the guys and all. And a lot of times the deckhand themselves have trouble telling the difference when they first pull it up, and they have to really get to take a look at it. But it can be confusing. All right,
sure
good.
can.
That's excellent right there. Is that it?
That's it for that one.
Okay, let's take a final break and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the final segment here. Well, let's look at our fishing game times today, brought to us by Mark Coward. Our times are 4:41 to 6:41. Look on the chart there, and 5:06 to 7:06. Okay, we'll talk more about the fishing times a little bit later. But let's get back to Travis now, and we've got all kinds of things going on. So let's cover quickly lionfish.
Yep, we're just going to go over this real quick, and then we got a real cool case of the month.
Yeah.
The lionfish. It's an invasive species. FWC has encouraged divers, especially because they come in contact with them the most, to eliminate them, as quickly as they can. And a lot of people eat them. You can cut those points off and they eat them. And I've had them; they're pretty good. Not a lot of meat on the smaller ones, but anyways. So what FWC is doing this year? We heard last year if you killed so many lionfish, and they gave you an extra spiny lobster. And up here it's not a big thing, because people do target spiny lobsters here, but rarely we see a bag limit. They're just huge, and down south, they're smaller, but there's a lot more of them. So this year, starting May 14th, that's going to be Lionfish Removal and Awareness Day till the end of September. If you remove 50 or more lionfish, you're going to get a T-shirt, you're going to get a coin, and you're going to get an extra spiny lobster during mini season.
All right.
So that'd be July 27, July 28, those 2 days you can get an extra lobster.
Cool.
Okay, now in our area, what they're thinking about doing as well, and this is going to be brought up at the next commission meeting in June, they're talking about giving a harvester an extra bag limit of bay scallops if you meet the quota of 50 more lionfish during those dates, and that would be during the Labor Day weekend, September 3rd through the 5th.
Okay.
So that's kind of a cool thing. If you like to dive and you like to shoot these things anyway, it kind of gives some incentive to kill a few more, because they are damaging to our native fish.
Yeah, they are. That's interesting.
So
all right, now our case of the month.
Pretty cool thing.
This is a fascinating case right here.
all right, now this case of the month, we had two Bay County officers. They did an excellent job on this. Officer Carl Hellett and Officer Mike Goodwin. They received some information about people hunting turkeys over bait, and they set up that morning on a hunter. And between the buzz of the mosquitoes and the turkeys gobbling and hens clucking and everything, they were set up, and it was right there at daylight, and they heard a shot, but it wasn't the hunter they were set up on. It was actually about 100 yards behind them through the woods, and this was a high-powered rifle.
I know that scared them. I mean,
kind of got the blood going a little bit. That's part of what we do. So they heard this rifle shot, and they kind of sit there, and then the hunter that they were sitting on was actively hunting turkeys, calling and doing all that. So they made the case there. He was hunting over bait, 37 yards from corn. And they talked to the hunter, educated him, issued him a citation. And then they went to where they heard that shot. So they walked through the woods. They found another area very similar to the first area they were at, which was a blind set up with corn.
Right.
And they found where a turkey had just been killed. And they actually went back to the blind area, found the rifle casing, the cigarette butts. They gathered all this evidence, and then started riding around trying to locate this hunter who had just obviously killed a turkey that morning. Well, they ride up to the camp, and there's several hunters up there, and they start talking to the hunters, and one thing leads to the other, and they end up finding the guy who had the same rifle, which was a .270 caliber, as the casing they found, the same cigarettes, And when they questioned him about the turkey, he admitted to shooting the turkey that morning and actually turned the turkey over. And that was 2 cases they made in one morning.
One sitting.
Yeah, harvesting, attempting to harvest wild turkey over bait. So
well, that's fascinating.
Excuse me.
They had the cigarette butts and the shell casing, so that had
and it matched perfectly. So
Yeah.
once they presented that to him, he pretty much said, "Hey, it was me," and so it was real good. And just real good work by those officers. A lot goes into making these cases. Sometimes you question your sanity when you're out there freezing yourself to death trying to catch someone shooting deer at night, or
mosquitoes are all over the place.
And buzzing at this time of year.
They're bad, yeah.
But they did a great job, and it took a lot of hard work and effort and planning, and they both did a real good job on that case.
And again, we'll talk about, these guys need our help. There's only a certain number of the officers we have out there, and we have to, as citizens and as responsible outdoorsmen, we have to help them out. If we hear somebody doing stuff like that and they're bragging about it or whatever, most of them are going to brag about it. Call it. You don't have to identify yourself. Just let y'all know.
Absolutely.
And y'all can get out there. And a lot of times, information from citizens like us, outdoorsmen like us, has led to some arrests.
It does all the time. And your eyes and ears, and we have wildlife alerts set up exactly like Winston said. You can remain anonymous.
Yeah.
And help. The resource out in the same time.
Yeah, one of the funnest ones I still remember was over Callaway Bayou at the bridge, and they were real cold weather. They were catching trout, and they were running, and they're putting them. And anytime you see people putting fish in the toolbox of the truck,
not a good sign.
That ain't a good sign. that happened when citizens saw that and said they're throwing trout in the toolbox of the truck, and they were just right up. So that led to it.
Oh yeah.
Okay, well, we're about to wrap things up. Anything else? You got most of it?
That's pretty much it.
Good job. Really good job today on that AJ and banded rudderfish. And
I hope that helps some people because and we'll try to do that throughout the summer with some more saltwater and some freshwater fish too. And that's probably the most commonly misidentified. But we've got king in Spanish. A juvenile king can be similar to a Spanish. And
you guys go through training when you're at school and all. They train it all.
We do. And like we were talking earlier, I mean, we do go through comprehensive fish ID training, and for the average angler to try to ID this fish when it's flopping around the boat, we want to help them out as much as we can. So.
All right. Well, thank you, Travis. Appreciate it, buddy.
Yes, sir.
Folks, thank you all for watching Panhandle Outdoors. We appreciate your viewership. Do something good for your fellow man today, and God bless.
Thanks for joining us for Panhandle Outdoors with Winston Chester. Panhandle Outdoors features hunting, fishing, and other activities and information to help you enjoy the great outdoors. Join us next time for Panhandle Outdoors.